Well, hello and welcome to NeuroSavvy Live. I'm Keyshawn Hughes. I am founder and principal leadership development expert at NeuroSavvy Leadership. I started this organization 5 years ago in the midst of the pandemic to help people feel healthier and happier at work. And since then, I've had the privilege, the honor, and so much fun engaging with hundreds of leaders, if not thousands at this point, through platforms like this, through speaking engagements, through consulting work that I've done with large organizations, and then also my favorite one-to-one and group coaching that I get to do on a regular basis, where I come together with leaders and we work through their challenges through skills-based learning that's neuroscience-based. And for me, it's life-changing. It has been life-changing for me. I also am a person who has had NeuroSavvy coaching with different neuro coaching experts in the field. So that's who I am. And today I'm coming to you today to talk about communication, ways that we can communicate effectively in uncertain times. That's where we find ourselves in. But I would even venture to say that are times ever fully certain? Can you think of a time in your life where everything 100% across the board was predictable, was something you knew would happen exactly when and exactly how? There are always experiences that we have and moments that call us to be ready in the moment to respond effectively when things are on shaky ground, when things don't feel as anchored and solid. So that's what I'm going to talk about today, just some communication strategies for both organizations and individuals. So individuals who are at work, individuals even who work for themselves, like me. But so that's what I want to talk to, just ways that we can communicate effectively, communication strategies for uncertain times. And some skills to keep in mind. Like I said, I do skills-based coaching. So when I coach, I bring my full self to the conversation, to the experience. When I'm before a room of leaders or even one-to-one, I'm pulling from all of the ways that I've had to show up as a leader in my life during very chaotic times, during crises, all of the learning experiences I've had educationally, the times in which I've had to test out certain theories in the workplace and then do things in the moment, do things based on intuition, and also doing things in partnership with other leaders. So these are the ways that I show up and coach, and that's what I feel like the workplace is calling for now. Individuals who are skilled, who have skills to navigate these kinds of environments, these situations, and the conversations that we find ourselves in. So that's what we pull from skills-based coaching, and some skills that I think are very important right now when you're communicating in the workplace. And these can be even applied in your own life personally, but we're just talking about the workplace right now. Skills that are very important to engage and to feel confident in uncertain times are active listening. Active listening. So listening with intention, listening with your whole body, your whole being. So picking up on context clues, asking questions, being able to rephrase what someone has said using the language that they're using, and also ensuring that you all have the same definitions for words that are being used. For example, if I'm talking about a way to lead a team meeting, and the team meeting is about delegation, I might have a certain viewpoint of what delegation means, and yours might be different. So when we're active listening and when we're communicating, it's really important to ensure that we are working from the same definition. So let's come together and define what delegation means for our team. What does it mean for our team? And then from there, then let's do the work. Let's take the action, right? So that's something to think about, active listening. My husband, he's a manager, so I get to coach in my marriage too, when he allows me. You know, I'm trying to be his wife. I'm not trying to be his coach, okay? But we have the best conversations because he's able to apply things that I share on platforms like this and in my coaching work. And he recently returned from a leadership development retreat where he learned about there are 3 different phases of active listening. There's a phase where you're listening and you're looking for what you can relate to. I'm thinking about ways I can relate to what you're saying. And oftentimes, if I can't relate, I'm checked out, right? Other times, the second level of active listening is when you are listening to respond, listening to respond, right? Sometimes that's not fully present because you're thinking about what you're going to say as the other person is saying it. And then there's a third level where you're completely immersed, you're completely engaged, you're processing what's been being said. You may be asking questions, you're having a dialogue, you're getting clarity, which is something else that is so important for uncertain times. It is the foundation that we communicate from during uncertain times, in uncertain situations, when we find ourselves wanting to know what's around the corner, but we don't necessarily have either the faith or trust in who we're engaging with to believe that outcomes could be the best for ourselves and others. So in those situations, I say the foundation for communication during uncertain times is to gain clarity. So when you can't solve for certainty, we can't be exactly certain, 100% sure. We can't say that we've done this before this many times. And so it's very highly predictable that the outcome will be the same this 100th time that we've done this thing, that we've run this process, that we've applied ourselves in this way. We can't say that for certain, but what we can do is get clarity. Active listening is foundational in that as well. But with clarity, maybe I believe that can be tied to tangible experiences that we can see, feel, touch, and track. So when we're seeking clarity, we can talk about, okay, what time can we come together and speak about this project? What time should I be there? What ideas or high level topics should I be versed in? What should I bring? What will be important to add to this conversation? Think of how, like, agenda setting. We'll just have some bullet points on this agenda. We're going to show up at a certain time. These amount of people will be there. We're going to bring in these 5 different people, and here's why. And we're going to come together for 30 minutes and we're going to talk through this project, next steps, where we are. That's a way to gain clarity. When you're tying your communication, whatever you're saying, to tangible, trackable, measurable, logic-based information. So if you can't solve for certainty, then you must identify ways to gain clarity. So something that we should be aware of in uncertain times, particularly times like this where people, they're getting laid off and let go via email. They don't necessarily know if their jobs are secure. They don't know where their next check is coming from, if it'll come through. They don't know how bills will be paid. That is extremely uncertain and scary. And it throws our nervous systems into a state of threat. And the ways people typically respond when in threat are they fight, they flee, they freeze, or they fawn. People often ask me what fawning is, and fawning is just when you go into like a robotic obedience, just for survival. I'm just here for survival. My thinking brain is not necessarily all the way turned on. I am feeling very threatened and afraid. I feel highly at risk. And so I'm just going to be malleable. I'm going to go with whoever I identify as the person with the most influence, power, ability to harm me, ability to have control of what happens next. I'm just going to be obedient to what they say. I'm not going to push back. I'm not going to be active listening. I'm not going to really be picking up on context clues. I'm just going to be available, and I'm going to live to see another day. So I'm fawning. It could be people pleasing, people thinking of fawning in that way as well. So typically we all have some type of threat response we automatically default to when times are uncertain. Our brains thrive in certainty. It's so essential for our brains to have certainty, for us to feel safe, for us to feel secure, for us to feel thoughtful, for us to be able to be innovative, even if we're being asked to bring questions and asked to bring our best selves and to be creative. Our brains need to feel a sense of certainty. But like I said, if you can't have certainty, then definitely solve for clarity. Find ways to be clear. Find ways for yourself to be clear as a leader. Find ways that your organization can provide clarity. So I'll be publishing an article. There's a thought leadership publication that I write for called Reworked. It's an employee experience publication. So lots of thought leaders contribute to ways to think about the modern workplace. How can we rework ourselves and rework organizations to make work better for others? And I'll be talking about this. It'll be published probably towards the end of March 2025 or early April 2025. So look for more ideas there where I will go into exact detail on how we can provide more clarity, how we can communicate effectively. I'll be talking about internal communications. I've had the pleasure of being able to coach lots of internal comms leaders and executives. And so there are some strategies they passed on to me that they deliver for their organizations and that they ensure their team shows up for to provide clarity within the organization. One of those things is templatizing. So making sure that we think through different scenarios, we're able to apply certain situations within different types of categories, and we have a templated response to those things that we can tweak and move forward with, but at least gives us a ground state to start from. So templatizing communications. Another thing that organizations should think about when trying to provide certainty, or at least more clarity during uncertain times, is to prepare their middle managers, prepare their people who manage people. So typically in organizations, we have individual contributors and we have people leaders, people who manage direct reports. And a lot of times I've heard it said that people don't leave organizations, people leave bad managers. And I have a lot of empathy for managers. I coach managers. And I have found through research that more than 50%, I think it's even a higher number than that, of people who manage people have never had any kind of skills-based leadership development training. They've never had training on how to manage people. They've never had training. And so for organizations to provide clarity, clear communications during uncertain times, that needs to be a part of your strategy. Developing your managers, developing your people leaders with skills, with communication skills. NeuroSavvy Leadership offers a breakthrough communication group coaching and training program that we offer to organizations. And we do this work with leaders. So they walk away knowing how to respond, how to be more adaptable, how to be more resilient. And we take these perspectives from the inside out. We consider the human ways and mechanisms of working, how our nervous systems show up in times of change, in times of volatility and uncertainty. So we practice and we train and we engage leaders in those topics, about those topics, so that they can walk away with their own unique skill set that's based on best practices that they can then take into their team meetings and into their day-to-day work as leaders. So understanding how to respond and be more adaptable, more resilient, how to delegate, like I mentioned, talking about what the definitions for delegation is, what it is not, and then being able to also manage your own emotions. Emotional regulation is another skill that is so important to be able to respond to and communicate with clarity during uncertain times. So we talk through practices on how you can activate your own emotional regulation during very uncertain times. It's really important to be alert, but not alarmed. Alert, but not alarmed. A lot of times our emotional state, the state that our bodies and minds are in during uncertain times, you can tell when someone is operating from a state of alertness or a state of alarm. Their decision paths are completely different. Their tone of voice, their modulation, their ways of either engaging or being extremely disengaged are very noticeable based on whether they're operating from a state of alert or alarm. What I've noticed a lot too in organizations from leaders who are tasked with communicating during uncertain times is that they are avoidant. They avoid conversations. That's when they start taking meetings off of their calendars. They start canceling one-on-ones because they don't know, they're not getting information from higher ups, or they feel pressure being the messenger, messaging and sharing information that sometimes they don't understand fully themselves or are not completely on board with. And so there's an avoidance that happens. And so when employees show up to meetings, they are shocked by what they learn from their managers who are operating from a state of alarm, or they're very disappointed when they can't reach their managers. They can't reach their managers because their managers are not available to talk. And so about what's going on in the organization, about decisions that have to be made that will affect both personal and team and organizational dynamics. So that's something also to really keep in mind. So those are some organizational things to think about, to keep in mind. Say something. No communication is communication. When you are choosing and operating in a way where there are some large gaps of time that go in between when you communicate what's happening, decisions that are being carried out, then people fill in the blanks with their own ideas. And sometimes they can be so far off. And it depends on where their locus of control is. If they feel like they are to blame for what's happening, if they're walking on eggshells and they're very insecure and uncertain about next steps to take, or if their locus of control, if there's a scale between who's to blame, them or the organization, that is all everyone else's fault. It's all the organization's fault. Accountability is key. Accountability is so key when wanting to provide clarity and communicate strategically during uncertain times. So say something. Like I said, providing clarity is just making sure that check-ins are scheduled and met. And so maybe when you have bi-weekly or weekly check-ins with your team or one-on-ones, sometimes just coming together and saying there is no update and reviewing what's already happened is enough to provide clarity to those who need it. Just knowing that we're still coming together. There's a place for me to come to have my questions answered. And if I can't have my questions answered, then I can come back on another date that's scheduled that I know about. That can help to resolve challenges within ourselves, like I was saying, those fight, flight, freeze, fawn responses, so we can be mobilized. We can move towards what's coming next. Eyes open, head forward, instead of being avoidant, afraid, and operating from a state of alarm. Clarity is so important. Date, time, location, context. New information we're giving, no information is being shared, who and where to go to for questions and answers. Those are ways to provide clarity during uncertain times. For individuals, it's really important to be accountable, to identify ways to make and prioritize accountability for yourself. And you can do that through what are your key performance indicators. I'm in a season with a lot of my high performing, high potential coaching clients where it's annual review season, or we're just coming out of it, or we're coming up on a quarterly review. Some organizations do quarterly review cycles. And what is happening is leaders are going into meetings with their managers and they're receiving ratings that shock them, that disappoint them. They don't know where it came from. They don't understand why there's such a gap between how they're perceived, how they're perceiving they're doing their job and how things are going, and how their leaders and managers are rating them. And so to close those gaps, that's a signal that there are some communication challenges at play. Maybe there can be some toxic dynamics within the workplace. Other times it could just be some ineffective leadership that's happening, ineffective communication that's happening. So in those times, be very clear, get clarity. Like I said, during uncertain times, you want to solve for clarity. So as an individual, You can get clarity by looking at what your key performance indicators are. What goals and deliverables have been written down in black and white has your manager set with you or for you that you can track and measure progress towards? And accountability comes into play when you have people who can help you stay accountable. Am I actually meeting these metrics? Am I actually meeting these measures and these key performance indicators that have been given to me? Oftentimes, for high performers and people who are high potential employees and leaders within an organization, they're involved in so many things and they're doing great work. But not all of that can be tracked to a KPI. So think about how you're showing up. Are you overworking? Are you overextending yourself? And are you overextending yourself in ways that can't be quantified? Are you overextending yourself in ways that can't be qualified? So I talk about this with our coaching in our coaching calls as well. Some things are hard. They're kind of like squishy. They're hard to measure. And so if you can't get quantitative metrics for saying, hey, maybe if you are responsible for lead generation and lead tracking. I was supposed to make sure that our organization gets this many leads per month, for an example. That's a qualitative metric. Other times is about relationship building. How are we being perceived as thought leaders in the industry? And sometimes that can't necessarily be quantitatively measured, but what's the qualitative measures that we can go for? And get those definitions understood between you and your leadership so that there can be alignment, so that you can capture feedback that shows that you are progressing in a positive manner or negative, or you're regressing. So understanding what those qualitative measures are, knowing what the definitions are for success, defining what success looks like. What does it look and feel like for you? And what does it look and feel like for your leadership? And being accountable. A great way to have accountability is to have a coach, is to have a mentor, is to be able to have someone that helps you, that is in relationship with you, that can guide you along the way. So that's something our organization offers. NeuroSavvy Leadership offers coaching. We can help you in our coaching sessions identify what's important to you for mentorship and hold you accountable to gain those mentors. Also, sponsorship is really important for individuals. What a sponsor is someone who invests in you. Hard dollars, cash money, okay? Either they invest in you by hiring you, or they bring you into rooms where other people will be able to pay you or have ways to invest in your future, whether it be through you being chosen to be a part of a leadership development program, you getting an interview for a job opportunity, either internal in the organization where you're in or outside of the organization. Typically, people attract sponsors. You attract sponsors by verbalizing how well you're doing, by sharing how well you're doing, which is something else people work through in coaching. Sometimes they don't talk about themselves enough for lots of different reasons. Sometimes we're taught not to talk about ourselves, not to brag. But a lot of times when you're doing good work, there's a gap between what you know that you're doing and what's being understood by those that you're in community with, those that you're in the workplace with, those that you're in industry with. Somehow, some way, they need to be able to identify you, and sponsors do that. You attract a sponsor, someone who wants to partner with you, someone who wants to invest in you, like I said, or hire you. Those are the definitions for sponsors. I talked about it in my most recent newsletter, which I'm sharing on social media. You can find all of this information on my website, beneurosavvy.com. Again, I'm Keyshawn Hughes. I hope that this has been helpful to you. Just a few tips before we end. Thinking about ways to gain clarity during uncertain times are the ways to be very helpful to you. I didn't mention this, but action speaks so loudly during seasons of uncertainty. Oftentimes, people with large platforms, people of influence and power, will say a lot, but we need to identify whether what they're saying aligns with their actions? Are their actions aligning with what they're saying? Are they in integrity? Are they in integrity? It's so important to be able to be honest with ourselves and honest with others. That's where healthy accountability comes into play. People who can hold us accountable and who can hold leaders accountable to ensure that actions are aligning with words. And if not, we need to hold them accountable for actions. For actions. Actions are so key. And there are ways that we can act that I talked about. There are ways that you can provide clarity, tangible, logical ways that we can agree upon. We can have a shared agreement that we'll meet on this date to talk about this topic for this amount of time with these amount of people. Having regular check-ins are ways to feel and gain clarity during uncertain times. Within organizations, within your own circle of influence, ensuring regular check-ins will help to do that. And then for individuals, ensuring that you know and are very clear on what your key performance indicators are, what your responsibilities are on the job, and that you are tracking those. You're tracking progress towards those. And you have healthy, loving critics in your life who are helping you stay accountable, either through mentorship or coaching. And then identifying sponsors who will give you opportunities, making sure that your work is visible enough to attract sponsors to help you gain that sense of success and clarity during very uncertain times. Well, thank you so much. I'm not going to stay on long. If you have any questions, please reach out to me, hello@bneurosavvy.com. You can follow me on LinkedIn and on Instagram at @bneurosavvy or at my name, Keyshawn Hughes. And I can't wait to see you again. And tell me what you'd want to talk about. The next time I'll come together, the next time I'll visit you and have this conversation will be in 2 weeks on Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to talk about the impacts of AI and ways to utilize AI to be successful. I didn't mention that today, but that's another way to gain clarity is through utilizing different AI tools, but utilizing them with through the lens of making sure that you are protected and practicing good ethics as you're utilizing those tools. But AI usage is a very helpful way to gain clarity when we're communicating during uncertain times. I do it all the time in ways where I can use my AI tools and ask it a question to get other perspectives to help me to make healthy and best decisions within my business and then also within my personal relationships and for even myself. But like I said, we'll talk more deeply about that the next time, AI strategies for success during these times. And feel free to reach out to me, Keyshawn Hughes on LinkedIn, Instagram, and other places that you look for me. Email me at hello@bneurosavvy.com anytime. And I can't wait to engage more with you on these really important topics to help us feel healthier and happier in the workplace today and always. Bye.